Good morning. Good morning, participants. It's 9 minutes past 10. I think we can start the session. I can see Matthew on board and Peter. Matthew, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, a good morning to everyone on this call. You're welcome to this webinar. Our focus for this session, and I will say we are delighted to have Peter and Matt, who will be taking us through a couple of three key parameters within the digital space. But before I think we go into the actual moderation of the presentation, I would like to welcome Daisy Linda Navakuza. Daisy is our head of supervision and market conduct. She'll open us off, and then we'll set off with our presentation. Daisy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we can hear
you. Eric, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Daisy. You're welcome.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a cold morning, but I'm sure we're all up and bright this morning. Let me take this opportunity to thank our panelists who have allowed and honored our invitation to come and support us in this very important discussion. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to today's webinar. In this era where technology is revolutionizing industries, our sector as the retirement benefit sector is no exception. Hence, our discussion this morning, it is themed Embracing Digital Transformation in the Retirement Benefits sector. The rapid digitization of financial services presents both opportunities and challenges for all of us who are players in this space, be it a regulator, service providers, even the schemes themselves. So we find that this discussion is held at the right time for us to pick up on the opportunities that are presented with digitization. There's been a great shift, and us as a regulator, we have also embraced this digital shift. In November of 2023, we launched our risk-based supervision system, which many of us know as the Bridge. And it was our first step in automating our supervisory processes. This system enhances data collection, analysis, risk management, and of course, aligning with best practices in supervisory technology. UBRA, as a member of the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, has also picked a leaf from the agenda at the international level of our regulators. And that is, for IOPS, they have for long emphasized the importance of digitizing our supervisory oversight. So with the growing reliance on AI, machine learning, data-driven solutions, both to enhance operational efficiency, but also to get things done different. We also noted that we needed to move in that direction. Many countries have already evolved. In the developed jurisdictions, we benchmark with countries like the Netherlands and Australia, However, this journey has not been without challenges. The various challenges, as we all experience in our workspaces, from cybersecurity risks to outdated IT infrastructure, but also that heavy need for digital healing. These all remain hurdles that we must deal with every day strategically. So to provide deeper insights, we have a panel of esteemed guests here. Peter will kick us off with a session exploring key trends in digital transformation. Matt will provide a focused discussion on cybersecurity in the retirement benefit space, and of course, an increasingly critical aspect in our digital journey, both as regulators, but also as players and service providers. We face the same digital security challenges. I encourage all of us to engage, actively ask questions, share insights, and of course, for all of us to be able to navigate the future of digitizing our space. Let me take this opportunity to thank Mr. Peter Mugenyi from the Stanbic Bank and Mr. Matt Bottomley, I hope I said it right, from the Standard Chartered Bank of UK for allowing to support us and joining us this morning to have this very important discussion. Thank you, Eric and team, for organizing this. I'm sure our stakeholders who are on the call will pick a learning point, at least one or another, for us to take away to our various institutions as we support this digitization process in a safe and secure environment. I thank you all. Thank you all our guests for joining us this morning. Please stay with us until the end of the webinar so that we can engage, just ask all the questions so that this team that is joining us this morning will be able to support us extensively for us to take away some learning. Thank you again, and I wish you a very good webinar. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Daisy. I think you've rightly stated it. I think the shift has already begun, and I think as a sector, really, even drawing from the international partners that we have, IOPS, we've seen such strategies also being driven as primary priorities in within even not only the space within pension or retirement, but even the banking sector. We've seen such a shift. I'll just give a few, just in some few minutes, let me just give just some brief background about UBRA. UBRA is a statutory body because I believe most of the participants here are sector players. We're having fund managers, we're having trustees, custodians. So our mandate is explicitly really to regulate, supervise developments of the retirement benefit sector. And we are established under the UBRA Act of 2011. Okay. So as we have a strategy, I think what's the foundation that we base our work and function mostly lies around a supervisory framework. Daisy mentioned the risk-based supervisory framework, which we embarked on automating that process. Of course, extensive disclosures with intent really to look at cost management. And here we are looking at a member-based focus of regulation and supervision, not taking away the fact that we also drive quality of services from the stakeholders as a benefit to the members. We look at an improvement in governance, and with this, the function is mostly enhanced even with our automated framework. The digitized platform provides automated points of licensing, fit and propriety tests, and then as also a form of just sector developments, we have a certification program in partnership with the Insurance Training College. So in terms of integration, we are members of EAPSA, East African Pension Supervisors Association. And here, of course, we set base and foundation of the policy space within the retirement sector with a focus in Uganda. We are a member of the Financial Sector Stability Forum with BOU, and here we are looking at a broader regulatory scope addressing stability within the financial markets, working with banks, the insurance side, financial intelligence, capital markets authority. And with this, we are only looking at mostly, of course, member focused, but also broader sense looking at stability of the financial markets as a whole. In terms of our role, also as a primary function, we look at coverage as an important aspect of our mandates. And with this, we are looking at championing an increasement in participation of people who are actively saving or investing for retirement. OBRA, through its board, advises government on sector specifics regarding retirement. Of recent, I think the cabinet, the public service pension bill that was passed by Parliament is, I think, a testament of the policy and technical assistances that was provided by OBRA in the development of that. Looking at the capital markets and the investment space of the sector, Uganda, speaking to Uganda specifically, our framework on investments revolves around the jurisdictions of East African market as the domestic market. We have investments in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda. And asset base as of December is about 27.5 trillion. Major concentration is in government securities, specifically the bonds. Quoted equities, of course, these are all domesticated within the East African region. We stand at 11.4%. And property is also still a low profile within the risk profile of our schemes. Unquoted equities, these are shares in unlisted companies or private companies. We have also a bit of low uptake, of course, because of the market environment that the region has been set through. So that's just a snapshot of BRA as a regulator within the pension space. And I think at this juncture, now I think we'll go into the gist of the webinar. And like rightly introduced, we shall have two panelists. We have Matthew and Peter. Peter, of course, will kick us off, definitely giving us an introductions, set based on the trends that we are seeing within the digital landscape. And pension as a prime example, definitely it's imperative that even with these advancements, we are also not left behind, but we respond to these changing customer expectations. Of course, key objective in the IOPS strategy that was developed in 2024, really, it's more of the implications that we are seeing within the retirement sector regarding digitization of finance. And supervisory authorities definitely worldwide expanding the use of data technology, digitalization of even the fundamental priorities within the sector. And of course, trends of digitalization or doesn't leave out certain, of course, downsides. Of course, efficiencies will be there, the administrative burdens might be reduced, but also the trends also indicate that as a sector or as developments, it's not without any risks. So, and there's widespread agreement in principle that benefits are variable, even in considerations of the risks that we're seeing in light of the cyber developments or security developments within tech. So at this juncture, I'll invite our first panelist or presenter, that will be Peter Mugenyi. Peter Mugenyi heads the Stanbic Bank data and analytics function, the business intelligence function at the bank. And he will set us off and drive the momentum towards how this webinar will be moderated. Peter, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric, and all the participants that we have on the call today. I will be sharing my screen. Just confirm that you can see it so that we can kickstart the conversation. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, Peter, you can see the screen.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so once again, a very good morning. I hope we are well. It is a cold morning. I think there's lots of unanticipated rain for the morning, but in the African sense, we always like to say it's the blessings raining down on us. But yes, real quick, I'll just kickstart the conversation around embracing digital transformation, specifically within the retirement sector. But of course, key to note is that, digital transformation does cut across very many sectors. What you can expect today is just to get an appreciation for what digital transformation is, indeed talk about some of the trends that we see and the insights, then also get a use case of what digital transformation looks like in practice. And most important, what are the enablers? How does an organization, especially within the retirement sector, then take advantage? What are the things that need to be, the rails that need to be in place for them to propel forward? But maybe before we kickstart that conversation, I thought it would be good to just share some info about myself. Happily married. Professionally, I have great passion, enthusiasm, especially in the data science space. It's really one of the most exciting things I have found myself doing in life, really just to be able to use data to generate insights that help propel organizations forward by providing clarity for opportunities. I do have a little bit over a decade of experience, both in financial services and pension. Specifically on the pension side, that was with NSSF Uganda. And currently I'm heading the data and analytics department at Stanbic Bank Uganda, which is one of the leading financial institutions in Uganda, with a very strong heritage from Standard Bank Group, who've been in existence for at least 162 years. And we pride ourselves in our purpose around, Uganda being our home, and we drive our growth. So the growth conversation is such a big thing at the bank, and it also ties very well into my my objective around leading with data and making sure that we impact generations. So I am excited to be here. I think really this conversation is very timely. If you've been listening, watching, and seeing different waves of information coming in, there's been advances in technology, so many opportunities that are not only for the financial services industries, but also will be applicable in many other industries, including the retirement sector. But I thought just to make the conversation interactional, and so we are not, it's a very short slide, by the way, but I feel it would be good to just get a sense of what comes to your mind when you hear the word digital transformation. This is a live poll, so please, I encourage you to get your smartphone, scan the QR code, and you should be able to find this question. It's the only question that I'm asking today. So please give us some answers. Give me an answer, give me a response. Tell me what you think, what you hear when you see the word digital transformation. So yes, I'd really love to see a response. I see there are some 2 participants. Just scan the code or go to slido.com and enter that particular number, and you should be able to get this interactive page. I hope you can see me. Okay, great. this confirms that we are there and we're responding. So someone thinks data and technology, making life easier and faster. Beautiful. What else? Please keep the responses coming in. Simplification, I like that one. Information and data to change. Wonderful. Okay. From paper to computer. Okay. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. We really want to keep staying ahead. Nice. Keep them coming. We're doing well so far. I know we have quite a number of participants online. Slido.com, and then the number you enter is 3622995. Okay. Mechanical, human, tangible, automation, machine, processes. Okay. Great. Future ready. Wonderful. The move from analog, working virtually. Beautiful. Okay. Evolution of information and data processing. I'll just allow probably for another minute or two, just to allow others to share their thoughts, and then we'll continue with the conversation. I need to up my skills. That's a good one. Okay. Yeah, keep them coming, keep them coming. Okay. All right. 20 responses. So the message really that's coming out is along the lines of, automation, adopting digital tools to navigate life. I really like that. Technology-driven tools in all aspects of life. Yes. Information, data, efficiencies, lots of that. And of course, yes, I don't mind sharing, what the final thing looks like at the end. Please keep the responses coming in, but in the interest of time, I'll continue or I'll proceed. But yes, those do touch a lot about what digital transformation is. And I try to think of a way of simplifying it. So it's not really, I'll start with what it's not. It's not really about just the technology. Although the technology is a core enabler to digital transformation, I think you can actually get the sense of, the technology aspect from the word digital itself. But yes, the transformation digital transformation is really looking at organizations being able to align and shape their strategy such that they can, leverage on digital technologies to unlock those new opportunities for growth, be able to innovate, move faster. It's really, and this is not something that is new. It's something that has been there for a while, but I think one of the things that the world was able to really see was during COVID-19. We saw such a shift and a change. Organizations became more aware of new capabilities in which they had to adapt, reimagine, reorganize themselves to remain relevant and to remain in existence. Otherwise, as was the case for some of them did close, and others that revolutionized themselves, changed their operating model, adopted a digital approach, mindset, were able to stay in the game. So we're seeing that lots of organizations were talking about agility. They were looking at collaboration during and after COVID-19, but the bigger one was really the transformation. I think that's when we began to see that it was possible to order food and online. We're able to get some certain services online. We're able to do so many things online. And that's really what I think, borrowing from what someone said earlier, being able to integrate all of that into everyday life, that really is digital transformation. And there are some supporting statistics, and looking at some research from companies like McKinsey, they run a number of surveys and saw that, at least 89% of companies are already underway with their AI and digital transformation journey, meaning they've not only seen the need, but they've also taken the action to begin to do something in that space. Then those organizations have experienced a 31% uplift in revenue. And probably the one that excites people a lot is, a reduction in costs, about 25%. And also 36% of companies have been able to adopt AI and technologies within their operating model. And this can sound a bit distant depending on what your organization is doing. But the truth is, the future is here already. If I could just, maybe try and bring it closer to the retirement sector, you'll see that there was some work that was done, and I'm picking this use case from the Pension and Retirement Fund of the province of Cordoba. I hope I get this pronunciation right, Kaja, I think. So they embarked on a journey to say, you know what, we need to go 100% online, and they did in 2016. Completely translated. Actually, someone mentioned this earlier in the, as they were participating in that live poll. They talked about moving from paper to digital, from analog to digital. Those are components of digital transformation. So yes, this organization within the retirement sector did embark on that journey, and they immediately saw benefits. So 100% they're able to do the entire process online. They deployed digital files that then helped simplify the process of pension and everything. Of course, that you could see this as the overall benefits that come from using digital transformation: enhanced experience, reduced paper usage. That, of course, translates into cost saving, TAT turnaround time improved. People are able to actually put in their claims and get their retirements, in time. Strong digital vision and culture, the agility to respond very quickly to market. They saw themselves adopt lots of innovation driven by technology, and of course that helped them grow even much faster. So this for me shows that there is benefit, there is applicability, there is a success that has already been seen specifically by adopting digital transformation within the sector. And much more can be done even in the Ugandan context. And I think Eric already mentioned some of the things that UBRA is doing in that space. So what are the key enablers? What must an organization do? What must the pension scheme or organization in the sector do to be able to make progress in terms of their digital transformation journey? Number one, very, very important. And for those, people who are spiritual, I'll borrow one of the sayings that without a vision, the people perish. In other words, if there's no clarity in terms of where the organization is going, what is it that they're trying to do? What do they want to do? What's the direction? So the strategy must be extremely clear, emphasizing how digital initiatives are able to align to overall business objectives. That's one. Number two, which is perhaps, in my opinion, one of the most important things. Of course, you need a vision, but you really need people. You need people that have the right skills, and of course, speaking to the people and culture area, it's very critical that there's a competitive employee value proposition that has been proposed for every employee to make sure that you actually retain and keep the very good talent. Because guess what? And we saw this in many organizations, at least where I have had the privilege of working, where the skill is scarce. Skills like data science, the use of AI, robotics, RPA, robotic process automation, all those things, people that are able to do those things are few in the market. So guess what? Organizations that have embarked on the journey are very quick to come in and try and poach, as they call it in the people and culture space. So being intentional about people, upskilling, making sure that they have the capability, they are future ready, are able to use AI. And I think, let me just put a disclaimer. One of the things that often comes as a roadblock is the perception and the mindset that, these things, the AI tools and all of this is actually going to take jobs away. But the truth is, it's only the people that are able to use these digital competencies properly that have the added advantage of actually progressing much faster. The other thing that we see is the organization must be able to have an adoption of the agile methodology or a new way of working, such that we're not taking too long to release certain products. We actually are incrementally delivering value. That's really what the agile methodology looks at. And of course, embracing cross-functional collaboration, because you get a team that has multiple functionality. You have risk embedded, you have someone from IT, you have someone from HR, you have, and all of those are on the same table providing insight and input into the successful implementation of a project. Then the technology, see where the technology comes in. It's not even number one, but it is really core to enabling organizations propel and make progress in that space. So being able to leverage on distributed technology. In other words, how do we tap into some of the opportunities that that can propel us forward, like the use of APIs, for example, cloud computing, emerging technologies. All of those are things that the organization must be able to have clarity on, and these are often embedded within the strategy. Last but not least is the data. And I've not necessarily put this in order of importance, but the data is also central in providing clarity in terms of where are we. There's a saying that you can't improve what you can't measure. You must be able to measure, have a sense and a view of the inefficiencies, the opportunities, and that's where the data comes in to create more visibility in terms of what the organization should be able to do. And of course, very closely tied into that is ensuring that you have the right architecture in place. You have the right rails, as we put it. Sometimes I like to use the analogy of a train. We think of the destination, so we start building the train and we say we want this to be a super fast, efficient train and system taking us from point A to point B. And we think of all the different things and capabilities that the train should have within. It should have this safety mechanism. It should have comfortable seats. It should be able to make announcements, etc. And sometimes people forget the rails. Where will this fast-moving train move on? And that's where the architecture comes in place. The right governance, structure, all of those things must be embedded to be able to leverage extensively on what data can do. And then change management. If this is not done properly, then yes, the perception, you indeed keep seeing and having a number of naysayers saying, you know what, I don't think this thing is going to work. I've seen this thing. We've had stories of Amazon and some other organizations that have embraced digital transformation, and they've laid off thousands of people. So if change management is not done properly, then of course, those are some of the things and concerns that we will begin to see. But the solution to that is ensuring that right from the top to the very frontline teams, there's appreciation and repurposing of individuals where automation has kicked in. So I'll end by saying, I think what needs to be key takeaways and a call to action is that there must be a very clear strategy. There must be, should be able to carry out a capability assessment, which then answers the question of where are we on a scale of 1 to 5? What does level 5 look like? And then what are the gaps that we have as an organization, and how to begin to reduce those gaps? Then you have, of course, you need to create a very clear roadmap that then helps to identify the process in which you close those gaps, and then keep people interested, keep people informed. KPI are just a different way of thinking about KPIs from key performance indicators to actually using information properly to make sure that change management is done appropriately. Then yes, that should be able to help drive the adoption and usage and execution overall. I'll end here, and I think, Eric, we can continue with the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I believe that has set an excellent really foundation to even the core of our discussion, really, because even as a sector, it's we shouldn't even just be looking at that technology first. But I think key here is even there's a strategic shift even in strategies and mindset really. And for the sector to really be at, I would say, top frontiers, even with the adoptions or the transitions that we are seeing within the banking, I think everyone and every stakeholder really has to be a parcel, really a part of this of the change that we are seeing within the digital space. Interesting statistics from Peter. At least we're seeing, especially from the private side, that revenue uplift really we're seeing it up to about 31%. I've seen costs at 25%. You see the conventional structure or the nature, the uniqueness of the pension sector is even as a regulator, which of course it's subject to debate, is most of it will be more of striking a balance between embracing developments that are actually strictly even capital intensive versus the social responsibility that you have as a member focus to your savers in light of reducing costs. I think there is a balance there that I think is a big subject of debate. But let us go into some key questions really. I think we've seen from the private side, especially the banking side, that shift has been, I think, really fast, quick, at least the trends that we've seen within the fintech space, the digital banking space, mobile money space, that I think its adoption was really fast, and it really changed how people accessed financial services. What lessons, this I'll bring to Peter, what lesson can the retirement sector really learn from such shifts, especially the transitions that we are seeing within that digital banking space, the fintech side? What can we learn from that, from such drives?
Okay. Thanks, Eric. I think what needs to happen, the retirement sector has been, of course, depending on, there are not too many players in the industry. So I see that if you look at the financial services, fintechs, there are so many players in that space, causing organizations to rethink how they are delivering value. It's really a market that is very competitive, very fast-paced. So the speed to innovate and get things right is critical. Now, those are some of that's something that I would see the retirement sector being able to pick a leaf from. The opportunities that lie in being able to innovate quickly, and also have what they call a return on failure. Be able to create a space where people can innovate, fail, and learn from the failure. That's really the concept around return from failure. Learn from the failure to be able to optimize and create new experiences altogether based on learnings. Okay, I see that as a really big opportunity in the space. The other is making sure you have the culture. Man, this one is so broad, but the culture, there has to be a culture, and it's a journey that is really traveled, but a culture that appreciates and understands that these things are not there to take our jobs. They're actually there to make it more faster and efficient, get us from point A to point B much quicker. So I see that the sector needs to focus a little bit more on the culture, the mindset shift, to be able to embrace technology, to be able to embrace all these emerging things as enablers, propellers for more success in the future, as opposed to deterrent. Eric?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Okay, and I think really to really keep pace with these developments, really, I believe every party really has to deploy some innovative strategies. What we've seen, especially in the uptake of the mandate that we've encouraging people to save. We note that even in the formal space, that's where we are seeing the biggest uptake of member credits or accounts for people saving for retirement. The biggest portion of people within the country in the informal sector. And I think I'll just bring it to you the way it is in light of how or why should an ordinary worker or someone within the informal sector really care about digital transformation, pension, also being taking cognizant of the challenges that we have within our space, the short-termism. Of course, you talked of mind shift. That is something that I believe as a form of transformation has to be key to forefront as we push even for the sector to develop. But to you, why would an ordinary worker care about this digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a very good one.
There's a saying that of course looking at the biodata of even our age distributions, it's said that digitization definitely favors the young. I don't know whether it's something you would really approve of that, because if we're 60 and above or close to retirement, why should I care even about that? Given the conventional spaces of people are using USSDs, I talked of so there's something there.
Yeah, no, Eric, it's a very good one. I'll tell you that a few years ago we were not thinking of solutioning for, well, maybe people had not yet cracked how to solution for the, let me call it the everyday person. That border rider who is really just making ends meet every day. He's using his motorbike just to provide and provide food for his family. And then we began to see a shift, and I'm giving examples of the organizations like companies like Safe Border that then gave us insight into how, if you communicate and show the relevance, the value that the individual actually gets from using technology or digital tools, the chances of them adopting and using them are actually quite high. So today, Safe Border is actually using, they have done the trainings. Yeah, they have done the trainings with these border riders. The border riders have the capability to use, Google Apps to navigate, to tell, where to find the client. All of that is actually a shift. A few years ago, that was not what we saw happening today. So why should they care? Why should the ordinary worker care about retirement? I think is even the bigger thing altogether. The digital transformation is the enabler. I think the short answer is, look, at the end of the day, every single day we're edging. We're getting closer and closer to that particular point in time where, yes, we may not be able to may not be able to work as hard as we are working, or work as hard as we used to work, and being able to intentionally create a system that has some sort of cash flow, and have the capacity as well to be able to use tools that can help you navigate the world more easily, it becomes very critical. And I think there's again, I do not have the data to say that, but I would expect, based on what you had said earlier around, the usage of digital tools mostly being driven by the younger generation or the younger population. Yes, it is true to an extent. And again, like I said, it's mostly anecdotal, not necessarily driven by insight that I have. But I see that even for the older generation, we've also begun to see a shift. I mean, I can tell you, my mom uses WhatsApp. She texts, she uses the status, and these are things that I would never have expected or never have seen much earlier when I was growing up. So there is a shift, and there's much more opportunity and value that they can get. They should care because simplicity. I think someone mentioned it in the poll earlier. The simplicity that comes with just knowing how to navigate a few things and do certain things on your own, I think is an added advantage.
Thank you, Peter. But I think that's really thought-provoking I believe, to most of us here. But even with the benefits, at least from the key enablers, you talked of, of course, there is an agile methodology, of course, strategy, but one that caught my attention was the data you get. And data, I'll just even speak to it in sync with the tech as an enabler. I think even from the regulatory point of view, I think greater accuracy and quality actually of data. I think it's still a paramount thing, even in light of savings, of transparencies within our systems. I would still take it as a hurdle. And here I'll pose even I think one that is unique to the sector service providers that we have, where we see that many still use Excels or legacy systems for retirement fund tracking. Could you speak to the biggest risk of not upgrading to the digital systems? And then for the legacy systems, and I'll use Excel as an example. There are different provisions, integrations with AI-driven analytics. Some APIs and functions are already being transitioned or created as patches within Excels. Is such integration with Excel something you would approve? Because these are all enablers. AI is a driven analytical tool, really, that would still help out with these functions of such administrators or fund managers. But is there a risk, and can we still use the legacy system in integration with these new tools that are coming on board?
Yeah, it's a very it's a good one. I think what it asks is, look, if you want to go so far, are you willing to pay the cost to be able to make that progress? The answer is, when you think of legacy systems, I think one of the biggest challenges with them and in the digital space is they're not interoperable, if I could put it that way. It's not easy to integrate with other systems. And when you think about the world we are living in today, it's so interconnected that having a system that does not support interconnectedness with other systems to create that added advantage. Even when you think about, for example, in the banking industry, or even in the pension industry, there's maybe say some pension administration system in place. It will still need to leverage on the use of things like APIs to be able to fast track some advancements, maybe expose some functionality that users can be able to easily submit claims, etc. online. That functionality is enabled through the use of things like APIs. And legacy systems, sometimes, which is really why they call them legacy systems, have not been built with capability to support that functionality. So I think there's no short answer, but eventually, if you want to go so far, there must be some work that the individual must start to be able to the organization must start to be able to make a journey towards leveraging more functionality and capability. And also, the other thing with the legacy systems is it's really hard to scale. The legacy systems, they've been built in such a way that, yes, they provide the core functionality, but to be able to scale and have broader impact is actually quite difficult. Now, you touched on an interesting point around Excel. Excel, yes, I wouldn't look at Excel as a system, But I would say that it has extremely a lot of functionality, actually. In fact, perhaps, we're limited by how much we know, or how much generally people may know about the tool, that then makes it look like a basic system, but it has capability to do so much more. I wouldn't necessarily downplay its functionality, but I would say that for scalability, there are many more advanced tools in the data space, the likes of Power BI, the likes of Tableau, the likes of NIME. There are so many tools that have come up to be able to support broader functionality and usage. Depending on the use case, depending on what the organization is trying to achieve, they're able to support that particular functionality. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. I think lastly, we'll just tackle two questions that are on the Q&A side. We have Amani Mwambura who says, how can security and privacy be maintained while embracing digital transformation in the retirement sector? Can you briefly touch to this? Because I know Matt will be speaking more about security in the next presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, real quick. I think there's also the other thing, and maybe I just glanced over it, is the governance around data privacy protection. All of that comes in place. There are a number of systems in place. In Uganda, we do have the Personal Data Privacy and Protection Act of 2019 that really gives us a guideline for how to maintain personal information. The subjects themselves, the people who are, submitting this information, the processors, organizations that are using this information for whatever different use, whether it's a marketing, whether it's a, you also have different players. So those guidelines help give clarity for how the organization should operate in terms of the usage of the data, and also even guides in terms of disposal. So some of those then fall into the policies that organizations need to be able to put in place to ensure that they're not breaching the law and the guideline. But yeah, I think definitely Matthew will speak more on the security side of it.
Thank you. I think some questions we'll answer them, I think, after Matt's presentation, but probably just to quickly respond to Fred's question on management costs. The question is, what role should the regulator play in catalyzing digital transformation in the sector? I think the shift already began within our sector as we try to keep pace with these developments. In the introduction, I had mentioned key developments around IOPS. IOPS is the International Organization of Pension Supervisors. And there was a project that started in 2023, to which UBRA actively participated. And with this, it was more of to explore the different innovative, really supervisory tools that could also enhance operations of even licensed entities and decision-making. And what I can say is that within the pension space, especially the regulated space across the world, we've seen that different authorities have started exploring potentials of really, even to the extent of converting the different rules, compliance, regulations, laws into machine-readable formats. UBRA, as a journey, we started with at least automating the data requirement with a risk-based supervisory system. We've seen that to a greater extent, especially to those that have gone ahead of us. I'll speak to APRA. APRA is the pension regulator in Australia, and we've seen that they have started converting their laws into machine-readable formats. And in context of even the European context, I think there is a broader plan within every member of IOPS to have this consolidation and processing done digitally. Still, Australia, I think last year, they started their multi-year data transformation project. And with this, their essence is mostly to increase granularity of the entire collection, taking advantages of the new capabilities in analytics. And they are passing this to complaints, they are passing it into the investments of the pension space. There is also the iForum that is based in Netherlands. Part of the project of the IOPS, we've seen that at least with them, they are ahead of us, especially exploring the downsides, risks of using AI in analyzing supervisory data or as regulators working with in collaboration with these licensed entities. I think all that is, those are some of the things that regulators around the world are really embarked in. And of course, UBRA also being one that is keen to this shift, we are keen to promoting these ideas. But still, remember our caution is really to consumer or member protection so that it's not overlooked. It's a journey that I think it starts in phases. I think from the enablers that we've seen from the presentation of Mugenyi Peter, it's more of it comes within a vision. An assurance I give is that at least within our strategy, we are moving to that before we go into the infrastructure. Thank you very much. Christine and Gilbert, I think will respond to those questions after Matthew's presentation. So Matthew, you're welcome. So Matthew works with Information and Cybersecurity Department of Standard Chartered Bank in UK, mostly within third-party intelligence and business development. You will take us through the downsides, really, and what are we seeing within as threats in Africa? What are the new developments? Because I would say it's also a development. I think from recently someone shared that what used to take a hacker sit behind a computer to create a code or a ransomware, AI is also creating it in minutes. So even as we embrace this, these are things that we can't overlook. Matthew, over to you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. And you can see the slide, presumably, yeah?
Yes.
Very good. Right. Well, it's my absolute pleasure to be here today. Now, what I will say is I'm going to be talking about computer viruses, but I seem to have picked up an actual virus myself. So you might hear that in my voice. So I have to go and pause and go for a little cough. Do forgive me. So I've worked for 20 years in information cybersecurity. I spent 12 years leading education and training teams in 3 top 100 FTSE firms. It's my role at Standard Chartered to support the business development and enablement team. So we work with clients and suppliers to keep them safe from a cybersecurity threat. Last year, my team delivered threat-led presentations to over 200 of our clients across all industrial sectors and geographies. And that includes people who work in IT, security risk, and also multiple tailored sessions for treasury teams. I'm really passionate about sort of spreading awareness and stopping these criminal extortionists and infiltrators who exploit vulnerabilities. They steal data and they disrupt our lives. And this includes keeping ourselves and our families safe at home. I'm also joined today by Samuel Kariokai, and he's on the call with me. I don't know, Samuel, whether you're able to come off mute and say a few words.
Okay, let's elevate him.
Yes, I can hear you, Samuel. Yeah. I can't hear you now, Samuel. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think Sam is still muted.
Okay. All right. I'll carry on. Sorry, I thought I'd lost connection. So, we've got a disclaimer on the screen. I'm not going to talk to that fully through. That would be rather boring. But what I would say is, anything that we share in this session, if you can just keep that confidential between ourselves, I'd really appreciate that. So what we're going to cover today, then, so I'll provide you with insight into what organizations, including those based in Africa, are worried about and what they should be worried about. I'll show you how cyber criminals successfully compromise organizations, even large ones with significant security budgets. I'll educate you on how you can personally avoid some of the latest criminal tactics, and I'll be asking for your thoughts later on during the session, and you can put your thoughts into the Q&A box or the chat. So what I'd like to do is just talk through the threat landscape, particularly on ransomware, which is where criminals infect systems with malicious software, which either encrypts data, extracts valuable information from the organization, or it does both. And then they hold that organization to ransom to get that information back or to restore systems. Now, last year, the average cost of a ransomware breach was $4.38 million. And that does rise to 5.37 million, where law enforcement are not engaged to support decryption of data and help to contain the breach. Now, that actual figure doesn't include the ransom payment, which we're seeing on average around $2 million US. So you're looking at well over $6 million US for a ransomware attack. We've spoken already today in this session about artificial intelligence. It is having a significant impact on cyber attack and defense strategies. Last year, ChatGPT, and I'm sure you've all used that. The owners of that are called OpenAI. They terminated accounts of 5 state-affiliated threat groups who were using ChatGPT to lay some groundwork for malicious campaigns. And these threat groups were in Russia, Iran, North Korea, and People's Republic of China. And they were using OpenAI for various precursor tasks, including open source queries, translation, searching for errors in code. So they really are using AI to support them in their endeavors. And it's obviously feared that the attackers will use AI so much that the people that defend organizations are not able to do that anymore, which is why it's really important that firms embrace this technology and use it to keep the bad guys out. Something I'm really passionate about, just at the bottom of the slide, because this is what I used to do, is educate human beings on how they can develop strong cybersecurity behaviors and foster a really strong cybersecurity culture at their firm. You can see that statistic there. 68% of breaches include human beings, and it really is one of the most effective investments organizations can make, is to embed a strong cybersecurity culture. And we'll talk about some of those cybersecurity hygiene factors that we can all follow later on, things like not clicking on phishing links, all those famous ones. So I'll give you some top tips on that shortly. Okay, so what I want to talk about first is Africa's cyber threat landscape. We're going to look initially at threats specifically targeting Ugandan entities and take a look at the risks, types of risks faced by organizations operating in this region. So based on the intelligence we've collected and the investigations we've conducted against breach organizations in Africa, we're seeing criminals operate mainly for financial gain, and that correlates well with research conducted externally by other prominent bodies. And one of those is PwC, and they've put cybercrime as the joint top most disruptive form of economic crime to have hit Ugandan businesses, with over 1/3 of those reporting an incident in 2024. Now, there are quite a few drivers for this, but predominantly we're seeing a greater adoption of technology to accelerate the increase in successful attacks taking place, with cybercrime incidents surpassing more traditional forms of economic crime, such as asset misappropriation and procurement fraud. So that's what we've seen traditionally, but cybercrime is absolutely overtaking those areas. So what are the criminal groups actually doing? Well, we're seeing attacks on African entities heavily focused on social engineering, and a significant shift in the evolution and maturity of phishing emails. So if you think phishing emails contain spelling mistakes and grammatical errors these days, then you're kind of mistaken. Again, cyber criminals are using AI to make sure that the phishing emails that they send are perfectly written. So that's a huge advantage. We're also seeing many African firms face significant challenges with vulnerability management. So that's keeping their technology, their systems, their internet-facing assets properly patched. And that issue is giving rise to successful criminal groups known as initial access brokers. And what they do is they look for ways to break into an organization. So they are skilled operatives. They are versed in that particular specialism of breaking into an organization, and they are on the dark web charging for that service. So they're out there looking for unpatched vulnerabilities, and they might charge as little as a couple of thousands of US dollars for access to a particular organization. And other ransomware affiliates and specialists will then take on the next part of that ransomware attack. So it's a hugely lucrative industry. So that's the cyber criminal groups, and there are some examples on the screen that you can see there. Common Raven and Dangerous Savannah. You can sort of Google those afterwards to take a look at what they're up to. Next up, we have state-affiliated threat actors. Now, as well as organized criminal groups, we're seeing these actors exploit businesses, non-governmental organizations, and other public bodies across the region. And although these threat groups use many of the same techniques to breach organizations, most commonly through a combination of vulnerability exploitation and targeted phishing operations, state-affiliated actors we know are the most sophisticated. They're the most well-funded, and they are incredibly dangerous. So for years now, we've seen Iran have a long-time interest in monitoring the Arabic-speaking nations of North Africa due to connections with its political interests and sphere of influence. Similarly, we've seen attacks targeting entities in Sudan and Tanzania by actors affiliated with the Russian state, where criminals are using infected USB drives to target a variety of industries across Africa. Now, this might include healthcare, information technology and media, telecommunications, transportation, the list goes on. And what they're doing is they're utilizing infected USB devices. That's a really common infection mechanism. They will drop that into public venues where you guys might be, maybe hotels that you're staying at. You'll put that into your drive. Obviously, I know you guys are not going to do that, but you'll put that into your drive, and that will activate the virus. That will give the state-affiliated actor an initial foothold into the organization. Next up, and a significant threat to be concerned about is obviously the insider threat. Now, what this threat group does is they work alongside the organized criminal gangs and the state-affiliated actors, and they're essentially people, employees mostly, who use their legitimate access to organizations and information for malicious purposes. And over the past 5 years, we've seen a year-on-year growth of malicious insider threats. Now, the main geopolitical driver in insider threat operations are intellectual property theft, strategic intelligence collection, and financial gain. Now, when we're talking about Africa, we've seen individuals being recruited to access and research foreign technologies and collect insights into business operations for national, military, and economic interests. Additionally, emerging technologies such as the democratization of large language models and AI-driven voice impersonation capabilities are starting to impact the cybersecurity and fraud landscape, with potential implications for the insider threat domain. Now, an example of this is a very prominent and organized criminal group known as Common Raven, and they've recently caused more than 11 million US dollars in losses for African banks. They've been using a combination of open source hacking software and tooling, recruiting malicious insiders who take a very small cut, by the way, for what they do in this. And they use their trusted access to deploy malware, bypass controls, and steal funds. Now, You might have seen in early February of this year, Uganda police arrested 9 members of Uganda's Ministry of Finance due to their involvement in a recent theft, which saw the transfer of funds to countries in the UK, which is where I'm from. You were talking about the weather earlier. It's always cold in the UK. And this case in particular highlights the importance of enhanced IT protocols, really robust employee training programs, building a strong security culture across your workforce, and being transparent around consequence management as well, obviously, in this particular case. On the insider threat, I've got a few more things that I need to cover. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Bear with me a second. Okay, so North Korea has moved from sending labourers in traditional sectors, so that'll be construction and textiles, to deploying skilled IT operatives abroad. And that's especially after the reopened borders in 2023. So North Korean IT workers depend on intermediaries to create accounts, secure bank access, and fabricate convincing online profiles on sites such as LinkedIn. So they're basically creating a false persona to gain employment at a target organization. Now, these particular North Korean IT workers are skilled in software development, mobile applications, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and they pose as professionals from other countries using fake identities. They can hold multiple jobs. They use hardware remotely managed in laptop farms. They've got special devices, almost like virtual privacy networks, which allows them to access employer-provided systems from anywhere, and they can obscure their real location as well. We've got clusters of shell entities in countries like China and Russia, who also hide their North Korea affiliations, and they're operating and misusing personal information of American citizens. I know of around 300 firms that have been subjected to this particular attack in America. This does enable the North Korean government to circumvent sanctions and launder millions of dollars into state-controlled funds. So it's been highly lucrative for North Korea. We are going to finish with a bit of good news. It's not all doom and gloom. Operation Serengeti was absolutely awesome, actually. It was a multinational law enforcement initiative conducted from September the 2nd to October the 31st. It's coordinated by Interpol and Afripol, and it targeted criminal activity across 19 African countries and focused on crimes such as ransomware, business email compromise, which is a form of phishing where false invoices are provided for payment, digital extortion, and online scams. 1,006 suspects were arrested, and 130,000 malicious infrastructures were taken down, with 35,000 victims identified. The losses in those particular scams were nearly 200 million US dollars. So there were 24 individuals arrested in Kenya for their involvement in a credit card ring, which suffered losses of 8.6 million US dollars. Nigerian authorities arrested a man behind a 300,000 US dollar crypto scam. In Cameroon, we had 150,000 US dollars for trafficking and money laundering schemes that was uncovered. And finally, Angola dismantled a virtual casino targeting Brazilian and Nigerian gamblers. And they arrested 150 for that and seized 200 computers. So that feels really good, doesn't it? Which is it's good to get a bit of good news in some of the scary stats and facts. Now, earlier, I promised you guys that I was going to try and help you yourselves detect some of the latest scams and tactics. And we've seen on Microsoft Teams, which you might use, that threat groups have been using that to send QR codes which install a malicious payload. So what the threat actor does is they set up a new tenant. Now, this is another word for a special account in an organization's private space in the Microsoft cloud. And what they'll do is they'll send you 1,000 spam emails, and they'll then create a Teams chat which will impersonate your IT help desk. They will then speak to you and say, I understand you've got a problem with your email. You're getting lots of spam emails. You'll say yes. They'll provide you with a QR code. You'll scan that, and that will trigger the virus. Obviously, again, I know you guys won't do that, but that's one of the tactics they've been using. The next one really is quite simple. So threat actors are using legitimate file sharing cloud services like OneDrive, SharePoint, and OneNote, and they simply host fake documents on those sites, and those documents themselves are not malicious. So when the threat actor emails you with this link to the sharing site, your antivirus controls won't pick anything up because there's nothing malicious about that. When you go to the cloud sharing site and open the document, there is a QR code within that, which then activates the payload. The trick on the screen is kind of a variation on that. So this pretends that you have a corrupted Word document. You will be engaged by that because you'd like to uncorrupt that immediately. You will press yes, and again that will link you to the next email, which you'll see on the screen, with an infected QR code that you will scan, and again you will have the infection on your mailbox. So those are some of the latest social engineering scams that we're seeing, and something to absolutely watch out for. Now, AI deepfakes have been used to trick employees. One particular case saw $25.6 million US of company funds transferred to cyber criminals. The individual believed they were talking to senior officials at their firm, but she was actually talking to cyber criminals who made deepfake video of a supposed conference call look really genuine and realistic. You might have seen stories in the media of famous celebrities like Tom Cruise and Barack Obama. Tom Hanks as well was allegedly promoting a dental plan, and he went online to suggest that wasn't the case. I do have some examples here just to try and bring this to life, and I don't know whether in the chat you can just write in the chat whether you think some of these are real or genuine. So what do you think to this particular picture on screen? And I'm going to check to see whether you guys can put something in the webinar chat or in the Q&A. So do you think that is a real photo on the screen or an AI generated photo? If you can access the chat for me. Let's see if we can get this working. I don't know, Eric. Can you see any responses, Eric? Or we have a response. Perfect. Thank you very much, Naban Kenya. So Naban Kenya has come back. So we think this is AI generated. Actually, it's not. This is a bit of a trick question. It's actually a real photograph. This is Selena Gomez being photoshopped on top of Lily James. So that's actually a photoshopped. So a bit of a trick question on that one. What about the next one? What do we think to this one? I think it's Mary Ann, actually, isn't it, Mary Ann? That your name. That's brilliant. If you can, we think AI generated fake. We've got quite a few responses on that. Well done. You got the right answer. So this is actually Zac Efron. If you can look very closely, you can see unnatural skin tones and weirdly placed shadows. But what I have to say with this is very, very difficult. Next one. One of my all-time favorite footballers. What do we think to this one? Plays for my favourite football team, and I shouldn't really say that, being at Standard Chartered. They obviously do a lot of work with Liverpool, but there we go. I used to play for my favourite football team. So people think this is sort of getting some real, some AI. I can tell you that is AI. This is David Beckham depicted as a street chef, which didn't happen. The same thing happened to Tom Cruise and Cristiano Ronaldo. And what about this one? I'll be very impressed if you get this one. What do we think to this one? I've got some responses tell me it's fake. Well, actually, this is real. There's a very interesting story around this one. This is President Ali Bongo of Gabon. He'd not been seen in public for months, and he was receiving medical treatment. And after little information and much speculation, the country's vice president announced that Bongo had suffered a stroke but was in good shape. Civil society groups and many members of the public wondered why he'd not made any public appearances. But the Gabon government released a video which raised more questions than answers, with some suggesting it was a deep fake. And 1 week after that release, Gabon's military attempted an unsuccessful coup, and the country's first since 1964. And they cited that this video was a miss. Now, we don't actually know whether it's real or not. Deepfake experts suspect that it is, but they can't categorically prove that. Just bear with me. Sorry, my voice is failing me at the moment. Right, so we shall move on. Thank you very much for your participation. I'm mindful of time, so I'll try with Eric. How long do I have just to be just so I'm really clear?
Yes, we do 10 to 15.
10 to 15. All right, that's perfect. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So just on ransomware, it is the top threat affecting global entities. It does, this disruption efforts on some of these criminal fraternities do have a good short-term impact, but they have limited long-term effectiveness. We've seen law enforcement operations on Lockbit and Black Cat. They were at the back end of 2023 and 2024. Whilst it was great for individuals involved in those particular scams at the time because they might have got their data and information back, it does have limited long-term effectiveness. Criminals involved in these groups will simply rebrand. They'll join other groups. There might be a loss of trust between cyber criminals in the short term, but eventually that goes away. And again, another reason why I'm talking to you today now is because at Standard Chartered we've set up a brand new team called Client and Third Party Intelligence, and it's our responsibility to investigate attacks on our supply chain and on our clients. First and foremost, we do that to keep Standard Chartered data safe and our client data safe. But secondly, we also reach out to our clients to see where we can help and support with a potential incident. And we have seen third-party incidents increase in both severity and quantity over the last 2 to 3 years. We've experienced service disruption through ransomware attacks on a couple of clients in 2023 and 2024. So that was Ion Group and Equilend. And in both of those incidents, we did contain the incident. As I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of time and effort was spent on that. We've seen a data extortion attempt by Clop, which exploited zero-day vulnerabilities on a transfer tool called MoveIt, and that exfiltrated data of 260 organizations. That was in 2023. 27 of those in that attack were bank vendors. Again, no Standard Chartered data was compromised, but we obviously had a significant role to play to ensure that everything was locked down. And we are seeing at the moment an ongoing data extortion attempt by a cyber criminal group called Clop, and they've been exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities on a transfer tool called Clio, and that started in the middle of December last year, and there's been around 150 victims listed so far. So you can see how these vulnerabilities in systems are being rapidly exploited. Now, what I want to share with you guys is some of the more common control failings that I've been seeing through the bulletins that we issue here at Standard Chartered. So every time a client or a third party is compromised, we will issue a bulletin to say that we're investigating. And I want to tell you guys what the top 4 areas were that caused those breaches. The first one is a lack of employee training and awareness. So that's employees not able to recognize phishing attempts that led to compromised accounts. And in those firms, there were also limited phishing simulation exercises and an absence of ongoing security awareness training. So as I said right at the start of this call, security culture and investment in employee training awareness is really, really important. The next one was inadequate patch management. So that's delays in organizations not patching vulnerabilities in their software. So they're aware of a vulnerability, but they don't act on that for several weeks or even months. And also a lack of regular vulnerability assessments in third-party environments as well. The next one up is weak credential management. I'm sure all you guys on the call have really strong passwords, but things like reusing passwords across accounts, that can contribute to leaked credential incidents, and also the lack of multi-factor authentication. So I think most of us these days, when we're accessing important services like our bank accounts and our email, we will need to provide more than one password, which is called something you have and something you know. That's one way to look at multi-factor authentication. And then finally, simply failure to act on suspicious activity, which is not ideal. So these things are being reported to the powers that be, but they're not acting, they're not investigating, they're not escalating, and they're not learning from incidents. So I want to share those with you today. I hope you find that helpful in terms of what we're seeing, and you guys can play a really huge part in keeping Urbra safe from the cyber criminal threat. I think at the start of the session, I promised some case studies, and I've got one right here for you. And then after this case study, when I've finished scaring the living daylights out of you, I'm gonna tell you how we can all keep ourselves safe after this. You'll be pleased to hear. Let me just take one more sip of water. Okay, so this particular attack, I've utilized this one because it's brilliant because it was so transparent. And if you can imagine at 4 a.m., 19th of March, your bedside phone rings. Samuel was on the line, is a CISO for Uganda. Imagine his phone ringing and he hears those dreaded words, "We may be under attack." So after hanging up, in this case, the CISO immediately phoned the company's emergency preparedness chief to organize an urgent meeting later that morning. IT had already shut down the network and servers to avoid the virus spreading any further. And at the emergency meeting, Norsk Hydro executives made 3 swift decisions. They decided they would pay no ransom. They would summon Microsoft's cybersecurity team to help them restore operations, and they would be fully open and transparent about the breach. And that is really, really important and very, very noble of this firm. Many firms that suffer a cyber attack will keep that to themselves, keep that hidden due to the embarrassment. In this case, Norsk Hydro chose to tell the world here. So the attack was identified as Locker Goga, and that's a sophisticated strain of ransomware. And the attacker posted a ransomware note on screens of corrupted computers. That note you can see just at the bottom of the slide, just under the Locker Gogo logo. Now, all of the damage has been set in particular for this attack have been set in motion 3 months earlier, when an employee opened an infected email from a trusted customer, and that allowed hackers to invade the IT infrastructure and plant their virus. So something could have been done a lot sooner to try and prevent this. And what the virus did, what the criminal did, is they captured administrative credentials, and that allowed the hacker to command the entire IT infrastructure and move around. This is one of the things that our cyber criminals want to do, is get into your organization and then move laterally across your network. So they're looking for credentials to enable them to do that. So essentially credentials that have that privilege and right already installed. 20th of March, the company is forced to switch to manual operations. You can see individuals working at the top there using paper. That's not what they normally do. They're using manual operations. And then just underneath that, they're hosting daily webcasts and press conferences. They're posting updates to Facebook, and they also welcome journalists into their control room. So really open and really transparent, and trying to teach the world how this happened. Across to the right, you can see Norsk Hydro focused on containing the attack. They restored operations. It still cost them $71 million, even though they didn't pay the ransom. Bearing in mind they're across 40 different countries, and thousands of servers and PCs were locked down. So a painful example, but one that we must be grateful for the fact that Norsk chose to share that with the world and help the world protect themselves against this. Okay, I did promise earlier that I'd stop sort of trying to scare you too much and trying to give you some practical guidance and tips and advice here on how you can support your firm in staying safe. So see, these are some of the key ones which I'm just displaying on screen right now. So I'm not going to read all of these out. I'm very happy to share the slide at the end of this session, but clearly, you know, cybersecurity policies and procedures, getting policies in place that outline your approach to protecting systems, data, and networks, how you manage software updates and patch management. Another area is security monitoring and detection. Really important, right? So understanding the software that you use in your environment every day. What is the baseline software you use? Is any software outside of that being used? That could be a cyber criminal. Is the software being used for legitimate purposes? If it isn't, again, it could be a malicious use of the application. We talk about remote desktop solutions. We all use them when we want IT to come and have a look at our system because there's something wrong with it. Those are often compromised by cyber criminals. So again, is that being used for legitimate purposes? That's what we need to ask ourselves when we're in, I guess, the more technical and IT teams. We've got another couple over there, things like data exfiltration protection. So for you guys, ensure you classify your information correctly and encrypting that when it's confidential. Building a strong security culture. I've talked about that at length, but getting in a really good phishing simulation program so that colleagues can understand what a suspicious email looks like. We've had some really good success with that here at the bank. And again, I'm happy to share some of the tactics and techniques we've used on that. And then finally, insider threats. I've already talked about it, but we need to monitor colleagues who are more likely to commit these sorts of crimes, essentially. So let's put in some monitoring detection controls across the employee life cycle. Let's look at employees who are about to leave the organization or who have resigned. Those are particularly susceptible to being compromised through cyber criminal activity. Let's consolidate that view into a single pane of glass so that we can really monitor what colleagues are doing, and we've got the right mechanisms and tools in place to escalate those incidents as well. Okay, so by my reckoning, I've got about 5 minutes left. I would like to get some Q&A in at some point. I've just got 2 more slides. Not going to talk too much about this slide actually, because it's a good slide because it just provides how organizations should be managing cybersecurity from a top-down approach, and I guess the various roles that are involved by senior executives and the board. And it'll come as no surprise that we expect the board to take a hands-on role in cybersecurity. We expect them to be leading from the top. We expect them to be informed when there's an incident. We expect them to be involved in crisis management exercises, particularly around cyber threat playbooks like ransomware. We expect them to be informed and involved. And obviously, senior executives will be leading those efforts, but we expect the board to be involved in that as well. So really important we've got that healthy setup. And it's not just my expectation, that is the regulators' specific expectation for how firms should be operating in the cybersecurity space. Okay, we are on the last slide, and very surprisingly, my voice has managed to hold out, which is a great achievement, I think. So what I will say is let's have a look at some of these on the screen. Right, I'm going to give you guys some top tips to take away with yourselves and keep yourselves safe, not just at work, but also at home. So if you get an email that you weren't, this is all I'm going to say about this. If you get an email that you weren't expecting, be suspicious about that email. Look for all the other signs in the email. So did it come from a strange email address, although it's pretending to come from a legitimate organization? Does the email address suggest it isn't? Does it contain links and attachments? These are things we need to be aware of. If you've got the mechanism to report them where you work, please report them to your security team. And also make sure that on your online profiles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm quite old now, so I don't use all the younger variations, but make sure that you limit things about your online identity online. Next up is malicious software. If you think you've triggered a virus, report that to your teams immediately. When you're Googling, be very careful. Threat actors set up honey traps online. They use paid ads on Google, believe it or not, and they are not checked, they are not vetted. So that's one way that cyber criminals can also infiltrate your system. It doesn't always have to be targeted. It can be, viruses can be randomly out there on the internet for you to just stumble across. Extremely important is this last point that I want to make. All of your devices, your apps, your software, your phones, keep them up to date at all times. So refresh them on a regular basis and update them. The vast majority of those updates are security patches. So please make sure they're updated. Password security. Again, I'm sure you guys got a really strong, memorable password. What I would say, if possible, is the longer the better. I use 3 random words, and then I add some special characters and numbers to that, but I try and make that as long as possible. So I won't use a 3 random words like it, on, and the wouldn't be very very good. But use a really long password. Obviously, don't store your passwords separately, and try and use multi-factor authentication. Make sure the information you come across in your day-to-day life, you know how sensitive it is. We have a 4 scheme classification scheme here, which goes all the way up to restricted, and then down to confidential, internal, and then of course public. So I'm sure you've got something equivalent in your organization. Make sure that you're using that, and obviously encrypting anything that is sensitive in nature. And I think finally we've just got information access control. So things like being careful when you're moving around, using company VPNs, we're connected to Wi-Fi outside of the office, not having phone conversations on the train about really important sensitive information, and reporting any lost or stolen devices as well. So we are at the end. It's been my absolute pleasure to host you guys today. I'm just coming back into the chat now. I guess Eric, maybe I'll hand back to you initially for any thoughts, and then we'll ask for any questions from the group. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you very much. I think I've seen that at least insider threat, or the hacks that you really never see coming, really is more devastating. And from your presentation, really, I think one of the biggest safeguards that you have prioritized is training.
Yeah.
Training. Yeah. But I think before we even welcome questions, just to pose something to you, Matthew, really. Because these are much more devastating and they're hard to detect. Emails, because that goes even to personalities, characters, what kind of level of training they have to detect such scams. Are there any other maybe hardware or internal controls that entities or companies can put in place to even detect some of these cybersecurity breaches? That is secondary to training. Yeah, and maybe just to add, what we are seeing right now is that most companies are reactive. I'll speak to Africa or Uganda as a jurisdiction. It's mostly we secure systems or respond after incidents have happened. With these developments, especially in AI, where you have AI-driven predictive functions, is it something that you would encourage entities to embrace or to invest in AI-detected fraud systems as part of their strategies?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, cyber criminals are using it, AI. We've seen a threat actor called Ransom Hub, who, for the first time, have used AI to construct their malware, and we know that because of the way that the malware code has been presented. It's very, very neatly laid out. It's very, very well labeled. So we know that cyber criminals are using AI. Here in the bank, we've got a lot of activity this year on using artificial intelligence to defend the bank. We do use it already. For example, our threat intelligence analysts will use natural language to talk to our intelligence tools rather than typing in complicated code and syntax. They will use an AI-enabled platform to quickly get the answers that they need. So it's incredibly useful. I think from an insider perspective, what I would say is that education for all colleagues about insider risk is hugely important. Making sure that colleagues are aware that if they start to conduct insider activity, there will be serious consequences and repercussions. Making sure colleagues know that they will be monitored. Also, particularly if they're about to be a leaver. I think user behavioral analytics is also hugely important. I talked about single pane of glass earlier, and being able to see, I guess, the workforce and the potential signs of insider activity within their day-to-day role. So, what is that colleague expected to do on a day-to-day basis? And are they operating outside of that? I mean, there are the obvious things like, has Eric got a brand new car? And is it a Ferrari? There are things like that we can all look out for. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question just on Insider and on AI. I'm very happy to link you up with our Insider Risk team. We've got a specific dedicated specialist on Insider Risk, and some of the plans that they've delivered and some of the really exciting plans they've got in place for 2025 as well. Hopefully that answered the question, Eric.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a question from Gilbert.
Yeah.
I think his question is regarding security in data sharing. And I'll just I'll just add some context to it. You being, at least as Stanchart, you have a third-party intelligence division, really. We're seeing growing API connections to different systems and of course there is a risk. You talked of identity theft. You get, but there's also information, really, as one that cuts across different portals using APIs or using even emails, sharing data using email. I think that's the context I would add to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, we've got to get real with this. Data needs to be shared across entities, organizations, clients, third parties. We've got tens of thousands of clients. We've got almost the same number, if not more, in terms of vendors. So in order to be able to operate, we need to be able to share data with each other. And I think we've obviously got an onus on ourselves to train our colleagues and users on how they should be sharing data outside of the confines of the bank. We do here have data loss prevention solutions, so we can see data that's leaving the organization that shouldn't be leaving the organization. So things like an individual might encrypt a Word document using the local encryption method rather than the method that is recommended. We will prevent that leaving the bank because we're not sure what that data is, and we would ask the colleague to explain that. So I think there has to be monitoring of data leaving the organization. I think from obviously from a supplier perspective, it's really important that we've got a good view on some of the risks that the vendors might have. So what are their vulnerabilities? We need to conduct regular risk assessments to understand their setup and their posture and work with them to ensure that they're safe, because you're only as safe as your broader ecosystem and any gaps in your broader ecosystem. We are looking to introduce a solution later on this year, which is called our continuous monitoring platform, and that will provide us with a view on how safe the third parties are. We can extend that also to clients, by the way. And what that does is it provides a scoring snapshot of exposed devices on the internet and how safe they are from various vulnerabilities. So we'll be able to see if an internet-facing device has not been patched in line with the latest patches and vulnerabilities. We'll be able to see that, and of course we can act on that. But again, from our perspective, the reason we've created the CTPI team is to not just manage the risks, which we're very mature at managing in Standard Chartered. The reason we created the CTPI team is to extend that offering, extend that support and that collaboration to our broader ecosystem in the supply chain, and also with our clients as well, which is why I'm sat here talking to you today. Hopefully that answered the question, Eric. I'm happy to take any follow-ups. My email address is on the screen. So if there's anything I've missed, do come back to me and let me know.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any burning questions from the audience. One or two.
I don't know whether you can sort of speak up just a little bit for me. It's a little bit faint, and I'm not sure how to turn up the volume on here. But yeah, thank you.
Is it better?
Kind of, yeah. But I'll do my best to listen. Yeah.
Just calling in for any burning questions from audience before we wrap it up.
Yeah, there is. I can see a question from Michael. Can you see that one? Loka Obo.
Oh, yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes. Actually, his question is regards to use of social media. I think an example he has given is WhatsApp. How safe is it?
Yeah, well,
That's
it's well, I guess the answer to that is, you know, it's an encrypted channel. I can tell you what the bank's policies on WhatsApp is, that we allow colleagues to talk on WhatsApp, obviously, but we don't allow any data to be shared relating to the bank, any business decisions to be made on unofficial, unapproved channels. We know that there are scams on WhatsApp currently. There are scams such as there's a particular scam where your WhatsApp account has been compromised and you're asked to supply a code. You could probably Google this actually. So you'll get a message saying, please supply me with your WhatsApp code, because I need to get into I need to get back into a device, and you'll provide the code to your device, and that will compromise your account. So there are quite famous particular WhatsApp hacking schemes being used out there. If you were to Google WhatsApp scam, WhatsApp hack, you will find that particular scheme that I'm talking about. Now, I've not seen the reason I've not covered that today is because I've not seen that in the last couple of years. My memory on that is a little bit hazy in terms of how that works, but I'm absolutely aware that you know, there are scams to that. Let's bear in mind as well that a lot of the social media messenger services like WhatsApp, like Facebook, even Twitter, they can be used to gain that initial rapport with you as an individual, and that can be a precursor to a follow-on hack. And this includes other things that are prevalent in Africa as well as the rest of the world. You know, romance scams. People are using things like Tinder to rip people off. I'm sure you've seen things on Netflix which provide a documentary around these sorts of scams. So yeah, you know, these things have got to be considered as a precursor and part of that social engineering technique of a cyber criminal. So again, the same messages that I've been telling you previously about being very cautious about contact and emails you weren't expecting is to be very, very careful. Very good. Have we got any others in there, Eric?
yeah, thank you very much. I think some of the follow-up questions we'll share them via WhatsApp, sorry, via email.
Yeah.
I think there's a question from I think Naman Kema. I think it still speaks to the fundamentals that you had in practice. Have you seen policies that are effective in this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Actually, Marianne, you've been very active on this this chat, so thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate that. So what I would say is, look, all of the organizations out there that have robust controls in place, policies, procedures, technical controls, great staff who spot threats, strong cybersecurity culture, those organizations are much safer than those that do not. Cyber criminals, you know, it's not easy to hack into organizations. I've made it sound relatively easy today, but it's not. Cyber criminals are looking for low-hanging fruit. They don't want a difficult life. They will target organizations that don't have these controls in place. They will target organizations that have not patched their systems. And it's important, therefore, that you differentiate yourself and you are much stronger than your neighbor. It's really, really important. It's like protecting your home with a burglar alarm and security cameras, which I'm going to be doing this week because I've just moved house. Making my house less attractive than my neighbor will mean there's less chance of me being compromised or burgled in this case. So absolutely, it's a great question, Marianne. And yes, it's absolutely helped organizations is to get robust policies, robust governance in place to ensure that they're safe from the threat.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I think we've come to the end of the session.
Vote
of thanks to you, Matthew and Peter. At least this has ushered something new, even we're in light of transition. And to those that know, I'm sure this has been some refresher really to you guys. I want to hand this session, or turn it over to I'll call Davis to give the parting shots and a vote of thanks to the participants and to Matthew and Peter. Davis.
Thank you very much, Eric. Very good morning once again. Just a minute to midday here in Uganda. Just to remind all our attendees that there is a poll that is currently running on the screens. Kindly give us that feedback, very, very important. But firstly, I would want to extend our gratitude as the authority to Peter and Matthew for the wonderful submissions this morning. It's been so enlightening and eye-opening for all of us, not just as the authority, but the sector as well. We have a varied range of stakeholders on this webinar, ranging from trustees to service providers, because we wanted to start these discussions about the embracing of the digital age and all this technology that is coming along, the AIs and everything, and the robotics. Given that we are within the financial sector and we have a forum where we are having a lot of interaction with other financial sector regulators as well. The ball is already rolling. We don't want to stay behind as the pension sector. So we very much understand that anything financial within the country is going digital in the very near future. So it's better for us to start now. I can assure you that at the authority, we're already in the works. It's not something that we're sleeping on, and we felt it wise that we do have this discussion rolling. So I believe that all the subject matter that has been discussed, from Peter presenting about the opportunities and Matthew bringing it home with the challenges that we'll be facing within this area, have all been brought home. So over to you, the attendees. We hope that the webinar has been helpful and insightful, and we hope that you will embed this in the management of your retirement funds and within the businesses that support these retirement funds, especially the service providers, as we work towards the desired goal. Thank you very much once again. Kindly give us that feedback. I would also want to appreciate the market conduct team at Bubra that has been behind the preparation of this and putting everything together. Eric, thank you very much for moderating the session. Wonderful work done. I would want to say thank you, greetings from the authority, and have a lovely day. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I want to close the session. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.